Alright, we're starting on another instructional video here on Derby bumper. If you didn't know, this is a bumper kit for demo derby. This is not on-road use. This is not any kind of legal bumper. This is a off-road use only, demo derby, autocross, whatever it may be. I've been getting a few comments here and there about people asking about what this goes on, where, how to use it, like all that stuff. So yeah, off-road use only, demo derby. Chances are if you're watching this, you already know all that, but I just have to preference that. So today we're going to be putting together a Pointy, they call this a Pointy bumper for obvious reasons. Has a very large point on it. It's a 14-inch point, I believe, over 32 inches. Pointy kit, this is a full slant with tapered ends. There are a few different variations of this bumper, the Pointy bumper. Tapered ends, this means it tapers towards the inside, towards the end of the bumper there, and it's a full slant. Some other variations are kind of half slant type deal, but this is going to be a full slant. This is a 1/4 inch kit. It's going to be, this process is going to be the same for 1/4 inch and 3/8. 1/2 inch is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be tab and slot, but for the most part, it's all going to be the same. Just as any other kit, we're going to have the mid plate with the gussets, bottom plate, top plate, back mounting plates, and your front face right here. So overall, we have 34 pieces. So I would recommend, same thing I recommend with all the other kits is lay kind of how I have everything laid out here. Get a count on all the pieces and everything that you got. As I mentioned before, if you buy a kit from us, we're going to put these gussets in the mid plate for you, so you don't have to guess where to put all those. 34 pieces, just do a quick count. I do like to wire brush and clean up all my pieces before I start, get everything nice and cleaned up, makes for better welding. So yeah, mid plate with the gussets, bottom plate, top plate, backing plates, and we're gonna have front face pieces here, and then end cap, I believe that is. So first thing we're gonna do, same as all the other kits, we got the gussets in the mid plate here. We're just going to square these up with our square, give them a tack, flip it over, tack the other side. We're going to do that with all 15 of these gussets here. Then we're going to work on back plate. It's kind of the same process through every bumper kit. I typically work on the gussets in the mid plate, do the back plate, and then do the front plate. It doesn't really matter which side you start on or where you start on. Yeah, we're gonna tack the gussets up, and I'll show you once I get back to that. Okay, we got our gussets tacked onto our mid plate, and we also got our back plate on there. So for the gussets on the mid plate, I just squared them up and gave them a tack on each side of the gusset. And I also, once I did that, I flipped it over and then tacked it the same on the other side, so the gusset is kind of locked in there like that. Then I grabbed the back plates. All the backing plates here are going to be square on the edges. You will have some other plates for the front, and then they're going to have a miter on each side, so make sure you don't grab those for the backing plates. But backing plates are going to be square cut on each end. You're going to have a longer rectangle, shorter rectangle, small little sliver there for the jot out. And the backing plates should be a little bit higher than gussets. You're going to have about a 1/4 inch gap right there, a little bit over a 1/4 inch. That's where the top plate's going to sit down. So what I did, I typically start in the middle, work my way that way. I put the plate on like this, square it up, get your square, square it up like that. I typically start on the inside, do that one, that one. For the ends, you want to make sure it's flush on the end here. If it does stick over a little bit, you might have to move it back and forth a little bit. You kind of got a little bit of play, so you are able to kind of shimmy things around as needed. And then, yeah, did the same for the right side there. Started on the inside and worked my way that side to the right. Made sure we're flush on the end there. Now what I'm going to do is flip this over and tack the underside of the backing plates. Right now I just have them tacked on the top side here. So I'll flip this whole thing over and tack the backing plates to the underside of the mid plate there. And then once we got that all tacked up, once we got the backing plate all tacked up, we're going to go ahead and weld the gussets out. We're going to stitch weld all along here. So we're going to weld the gussets to the mid plate, and we're also going to weld the gussets to the backing plate here. So I'm going to weld like there, and then I'll run a bead down the side here. You want to make sure you don't get any weld on the top here, because your top plate is going to have to sit on here. So I typically just run it down the side. I don't usually go over the top side here, because you'll have to grind that down to get a nice fit on the top plate once you get that far. So I'm going to go ahead and weld all this out. It's going to be quite a bit of welding, so you want to make sure everything kind of stays flat and square. If you have to clamp stuff down, go ahead and do that. When you're welding, I do recommend to kind of jump around a little bit from side to side to disperse that heat a little bit. You're going to be putting quite a bit of heat into this thing, so you just want to make sure it doesn't look like a banana once you're done here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll get back. Okay, that was a lot of welding, but we got that all done. So we just kind of did some stitch welds here in the front, stitch weld the backing plate, and then down both sides of the gusset, and do that all the way down. And on the other side as well. Also got the backing plates, the seam on the backing plates there. So yeah, quite a bit of welding, but it's not too bad. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is get that top plate on there. What we did was just take the grinder and kind of run the grinder over the top of the gussets here and the backing plate there. We just kind of smoothed everything out. Get a nice flat edge on everything, and we're going to lay the top plate on the top here. You do want to make sure you did as much welding as you want to do, because once we start getting the top and bottom plate on there, it's going to be real hard to get back in there. So now is a good time to just double check that you got everything that you want to weld, that you didn't miss any spots, because there's no turning back after we get these top and bottom plates on. So I'm going to go ahead and get that top plate on now. Okay, we got that top plate fit on there. It's kind of how everything's looking. Gonna have a nice kind of fillet weld on the backing plate there. You might have to do some grinding here on the edges and the corners right here to kind of get it tight up against the backing plate here. I do have a little bit of a gap right there, but that's fine. But you may have to kind of grind some off, take some material off to get it fit back up flush, or as tight as you can to the backing plate here. A little bit of gap is okay. You don't want nothing too major. You do want to try to keep it as flush as possible on the front here with the gussets. It is okay if it has a little bit of an edge or a lip, but you don't want anything too significant. And then same thing, you want to make sure it's flush here on the end. And yeah, kind of do some fitting. You might have to do some grinding and some fitting to make sure it's tight up against the backing plate there. And now to weld this out, we're gonna go up and down each side of the gusset here, the middle gussets, and weld it to the top plate. It's going to be hard to get kind of deep down in there, so I usually just go down a couple inches or so each side, and then you can also get kind of in between there, and then that one long seam on the back should be able to get a good amount of good weld bead on the back there. So we're going to do that, and then we're also going to weld our seams up on the backing plate. We didn't do that before, but once we do this, we're going to go ahead and weld the seams along the backing plate there, and then we'll come back and fit the bottom plate. Okay, we got that top plate on there, and we got that all welded to the gussets. This is the top plate there. It's kind of flipped upside down, but we got that all welded, and then we got the back or the bottom plate on there now, and the bottom plate is a little bit different of a weld joint. You're gonna have a little bit different fit up on the bottom plate. I do got a gap in the center section, but that'll be all right. Kind of giving you an idea on how the bottom plate looks. Pretty self-explanatory. Just about flush with the front of the gussets there. We're gonna have a real nice weld here on the back side. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna weld the bottom of the gussets to the bottom of the plate here on each side, just like we did the top plate. And then we'll run a nice bead along the back side here. And we did get the backing plates welded up as well when we did the front plate or the top plate. So that's how the bottom plate is looking. We're gonna go ahead and weld this out, and then we'll go ahead and start working on the front face after we get this done. Okay, we got that bottom plate on there. Got that all welded, and then we went ahead and put the front face on. This is kind of how the front face is looking. If you need to pause this video and kind of look how these pieces go together, I would go ahead and do that. They only really fit one way. Front face, this is how that looks. Just kind of got to piece together the miters and the edges until it fits. They can only go one way, so if it doesn't fit, you just got to turn it around, flip it around until you can make it fit. I usually start with the two long pieces towards the front here, tack those on, and then I'll piece together the rest of these pieces, and same on that side. It is kind of hard to balance everything at once, so I like to just put one piece in place, tack it, put the other piece in place, tack it, and then move along. Since it's at a slant and it's sitting up, the pieces kind of slide off if you don't tack them right away. So I recommend just putting one piece on at a time, tacking it, and then moving along. So pretty much just about done. After this, we're going to go ahead and weld the front face up, weld the seams up, weld the top and bottom. And we do have the end caps here that are going to get put on like that. So we're going to go ahead and weld everything out, and then I'll check back once I got everything welded, once I got the end caps on, and we'll do a quick another overview.